Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar titled Secure Funding for California Combustion, Freight, and Marine Projects. We're excited to share details and information with you about this funding solicitation from the South Coast AQMD. My name is Barbara Brentano. I'm a manager for engagement marketing at Gladstein Meandros and Associates, or G&A, a clean transportation and energy consulting firm. We are helping out with the technical side of things today. And before we get rolling, some housekeeping items to go over. A recording of this webinar will be sent out by the start of next week to the email that you used to register for this event. At the end of the webinar, before closing your browser, we kindly ask that you complete our quick 30-second survey. Your feedback is truly appreciated. And now, and for any technical issues, you can see the information on your screen there for Benjamin Chan. Contact him if you need assistance. And now I'd like to introduce Ping Wei with the South Coast AQMD. She will be presenting the information today on the important funding solicitation. Ping, the floor is now yours.
Alrighty, good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ping Wei and I am the Program Supervisor for the Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Program categories administered by the South Coast AQMD. Today's webinar is our second webinar presentation intended to give you an overview and some details about the second statewide currently open solicitation for the combustion, freight, and marine projects category of the VW Mitigation Program. Again, as an emphasis, the VW program is a statewide program. Therefore, applicants throughout the state of California are eligible to apply for all VW programs. The VW Environmental Mitigation Trust is the result of the settlement with Volkswagen for their illegal use of defeat devices in certain 2.0-liter and 3.0-liter VW diesel vehicles. And the VW Trust funds are intended to fully mitigate the excess NOx emissions caused by VW's actions. The California Air Resources Board, or CARB, is the designated lead agency acting on the state's behalf as a beneficiary to implement California's allocation of VW Trust funds. CARB approved a Beneficiary Mitigation Plan, or BMP, which identified program criteria for the state and the 5 funding categories shown in the pie chart. These project categories are administered statewide by 3 different air districts, but today's focus will be the combustion category administered by the South Coast AQMD. The second statewide solicitation for the combustion category is now accepting applications. Eligible projects under this category include Class 7 and 8 freight trucks, dray trucks, waste haulers, dump trucks, and concrete mixers, freight switcher locomotives, and ferries, tugboats, and towboats. Applications will be accepted on a first-come, first-served basis from applicants throughout the state of California. The combustion category was allocated $60 million, and the first installment is for $30 million. Due to the previous solicitation closing undersubscribed, the second solicitation will have about $26 million available in project funds. The VW program is a statewide program and is available to both public and private entities to replace or repower older vehicles or equipment with the cleanest commercially available internal combustion or hybrid technology. Again, internal combustion or hybrid technology. The solicitation will be first come, first served, and at least 50% of funds are expected to be used for projects benefiting disadvantaged or low-income communities. To apply, you'll need to use South Coast AQMD's web-based application portal, also called the Grant Management System or GMS. There are no paper applications. Everything is electronic. The first step is to register as an applicant, which is defined as the legal owner of the vehicle or equipment, or an engine manufacturer applying on behalf of the legal owner. You're allowed to, but not required, to have a consultant help you through the application process. If you're using a consultant, you'll need to assign them an application you've created in the GMS so they are able to work on your application. However, a consultant cannot sign an application for the applicant. If you choose not to use a consultant, South Coast AQMD VW staff is available to help you with any questions you may have. And if you're interested, we have more information on using a consultant in the resources section of our website. Please note, and this is very, very important, you cannot take possession of any funded new equipment or start any work on a Repower project until a contract is executed. Purchase orders without an executed contract are at the risk of the applicant. As for out-of-state international registration plans or IRPs, they're eligible if you can demonstrate 75% operation in California. To be eligible, you will need to demonstrate that for the past 12 months, your existing vehicle or equipment was operated at least 75% of the time in California. And if you're funded, the new unit must also meet this criteria. In addition, existing freight trucks, dray trucks, dump trucks, and concrete mixers must operate a minimum of 20,000 miles per year or 10,000 miles per year specifically for waste haulers. Old and new units must be available for inspection, and fleets, not just the applicable units themselves, must be in compliance with all local, state, and federal regulations. The VW program does not fund for compliance, meaning all units not in compliance will not be eligible for funding. In addition, the VW program is a scrap and replacement program. Therefore, old vehicles, equipment, or engines must be scrapped. As for general funding information, there is a funding limitation of $3 million per entity for this solicitation, so you can apply for multiple units. And as always, the total award amount cannot exceed the actual cost of the new unit. Co-funding cannot be combined with any state funds, such as the Carl Moyer and HVIP programs. However, you can potentially stack VW program funds with other funds, other local funds, which do not claim NOx emission reduction. Therefore, please reach out to your local air districts to see if other funding sources are available. This table and the table on the next slide summarize funding and eligibility for non-government owned and government owned equipment. For non-government owned equipment, there is both a percentage cap and a maximum funding cap. While for government owned equipment, there is only a maximum incentive cap. We'll go into more eligibility and funding details in the next few slides. But if you like a copy of both tables, they can be downloaded via South Coast AQMD's VW website. Starting with on-road vehicles, Class 7 and 8 freight and dray trucks waste haulers, dump trucks, and concrete mixers are eligible for funding. Replacement or repowered technology must be certified at or below the optional low NOx standard of 0.02 grams per brake horsepower hour. Class 7 and 8 are differentiated by their gross vehicle weight rating as established by the vehicle's GVWR label. And eligible engine model years for this solicitation is from 1992 to 2012. However, again, fleets, not just the applicable vehicles itself, must be compliant with all current rules and regulations. As for locomotives, for the VW program, funding is limited to freight switchers. Railcar movers are not eligible for funding. Switchers must be replaced or repowered to Tier 4 standards. The old engine must be pre-Tier 1. The unit must operate at least 1,000 hours annually, and the engine horsepower must be between 1,006 and 2,300. Lastly, we have marine vessels. Only ferries, tugboats, and towboats are eligible. And for this category, only repowers to Tier 4 or hybrid with Tier 4 emission standards are allowed. So there is no replacement option for the marine category. The old engine must be pre-Tier 3, and the vessel must serve a dedicated purpose. For example, a ferry that also does some private excursions would not be considered eligible. Moving on to funding. The VW program has two different funding caps, of which the lesser amount is awarded. The first cap is a percentage of the unit cost, and the second cap is a set dollar amount. These limits are different between public and private entities. For trucks, if you're a government agency, the caps are either you can receive up to 100% of the cost for a replacement truck or $85,000. It's likely that the cost will exceed $85,000, but that would still be the capped award amount since it's the lesser amount. Now, if you're a private entity, funding is at 25% of the cost of the unit, or 50% specifically for Class H rated trucks only, not exceeding again the $85,000 cap. Repowers follow the same logic, just with different percentages and maximum dollar cap. To help everyone understand this a little bit better, we'll have some funding examples coming up soon. Switcher locomotives also follow this logic, just with different percentages and maximum dollar amount. The maximum award amount is capped at $1.35 million for both replacement and repower. But for repowers, this amount would be for the entire unit, regardless of the number of engines. And for marine vessels, replacements again are not eligible, only repowers. Please be aware that the maximum award amount of $1 million is for the entire vessel, regardless of the number of engines to be repowered. So, the following slides are examples of how to calculate the potential award amount. In the first scenario, we're replacing a Class 8 freight truck that is not a drayage truck. This truck is owned by a private entity, and the cost of the new truck is $200,000. We reference our funding table to obtain the two caps and see that 25% of $200,000 is $50,000, which is less than the $85,000 funding cap. We take the lower of the two, so the award amount will actually be $50,000. Now, if we took the same scenario but changed it to a drayage truck, we start by checking our funding table. And we'll find that a non-government Class 8 dray truck has a percentage cap of 50% of the cost of the unit, so $100,000 in this case. But the maximum funding cap is $85,000, and you cannot exceed that amount, which makes $85,000 our final award amount. Now, quickly going over some estimated timelines and basic application requirements. Again, solicitation for the combustion category is first come, first served, and applications are currently being accepted from applicants across the state of California. Solicitation will close once all funds have been exhausted. Evaluation and contracting will be continuous, and annual reports will be expected sometime in 2023. So what do you need to begin an application? You'll need a copy of your vehicle title or proof of ownership for switchers and marine vessels, 12 months of usage record, insurance documentation, and for on-road vehicles, 12 months of vehicle registration documentation, an itemized vendor quote showing all taxes and fees, and engine information for the new and old units with photos as supporting documentation. During evaluation, we're checking to make sure your project meets all eligibility and compliance requirements, calculating NOx emission reduction, and determining how much funding a project is allowed. Afterwards, project selected will receive a contract, which for this program will be 3 years. The contract will have requirements to meet milestones such as the in-service dates of new units, which currently will be 18 months from the contract effective date, or the compliance date, whichever is earlier. Usage, demonstrating 75% operation in California, reporting, record keeping, and allowing the program administrator access to vehicle or equipment inspections and record audits. As for payment, payment is by reimbursement and only after we've received a complete and valid invoice, verified that program requirements have been met, ensured that the new unit has been placed into service, and finally, all inspections are completed and we've received proof of old unit destruction. After your contract is executed, you need to submit 3 years of annual report, but keep all program records for at least 6 years and demonstrate that the units operate within California for the term of the contract. Now, some noteworthy changes specifically for the second solicitation of the combustion category. The solicitation again is now first come, first served. FET and sales taxes are no longer eligible costs, and a minimum usage of 20,000 miles for freight trucks, dray trucks, dump trucks, and concrete mixers, or 10,000 miles for waste haulers is required to be eligible for funding. Therefore, vehicles with low usage exemptions will not be considered eligible. For additional information on this funding category, please visit our VW website at aqmd.gov/VW. Also, take a look at the resources section of our website, where you'll find the funding and eligibility tables, frequently asked questions, a guide for using consultant definitions, and other very helpful information that will assist you through the application process. You can also reach us via phone or email. And on this slide, we also included some helpful links such as the California VW webpage administered by the 3 air districts, and links to information by CARB such as the BMP and locating your local air district. that concludes the main presentation. And now we'll have some time to take questions.
One of the questions is, can we qualify if our registration is out of date?
So your vehicle does have to have an active registration to be eligible for funding. So we do understand that there are maybe periods potentially due to COVID, but that is a completely different story. So if your vehicle is currently not registered or not operational, then that vehicle would not be eligible for funding.
Next question from the webinar, is this funding also available for straight trucks, box trucks?
That would again depend on the class of the vehicle. So as long as you meet the definition of freight, which again, if you go to our website, there is actually a definition in resources, and it gives you the definitions of the various truck types. Please take a look at that. Because as long as you fit into the definition of freight, and it doesn't matter what type of freight you're carrying, then yes, you will be eligible, depending again if you fall into the class 7 or 8 category. If you're a class 6 vehicle, then no, you would not be eligible.
For class 7 and 8, are vehicles newer than 2012 not eligible?
So we're talking about engine model years. We just have to be very specific and careful. If your truck is within that period, then yes. If your engine model year is 2013, then no, you would not be eligible for funding. So please make sure, again, that your vehicle meets compliance and is within that range. That would determine your compliance.
Next question, can this program be used for replacement with a zero emission vehicle?
So yes and no. For the VW program, we do have a zero emission category for Class A trucks. It's just not this category. So funding for this category is for combustion only. So if you're interested in funding for ZE equipment, specifically Class 8 trucks, please keep an eye out on our VW website because there is more funding and solicitations are expected to open perhaps next year, late next year, fall next year, or early 2023. So again, keep an eye on our website. There are more funds coming your way.
Next question, does the replacement vehicle have to be brand new?
Yes. So there is actually a definition, very specific, again, in our definition section, that states what a new vehicle actually is. So you cannot replace your current existing equipment with a used vehicle, no exceptions.
What are the maximum minimum contract lengths for marine projects?
It's 3 years flat across the board. So excellent questions, everyone. The VW program simply has a 3-year contract term. So it doesn't matter what type of equipment, it is just simply 3 years.
Do you have to turn in the truck being replaced?
Yes, not only turn in, scrapped. So the VW program is a scrap and replace program. So your equipment and your engines, they all have to be destroyed to be eligible for funding.
What is the turnaround time upon approval of the contract to receive funding?
So the turnaround time this time around, our goal is to get the evaluations out as quickly as possible. And then applicants are given a period of time to respond to us. Applications generally will be mostly complete, but there are always information we are seeking. So we want the turnaround to be as quickly as possible, but that does also depend upon the applicant's ability to get the information to us quickly. Once we start contracting, applicants will have 45 days. So we are looking at hopefully about 3 months to get the applications out to the applicants, depending again on how quickly the information is provided to us.
If I could add to that, yeah, I think what in summary of what Ping said, it's really we encourage you to submit a complete application, because if your application comes in complete under this first come first serve model, from that point we would evaluate it, verify eligibility, and then from that point it would be about a 2 to 3 month process before you get your contract. So I think anything you can do, we're here to help you with your application submittals. So yeah, we encourage you to submit a complete application to expedite that process. Thank you.
Next question, is funding available for VW branded vehicles only, or are other branded vehicles available for funding? For example, are Class 8 Freightliner Cascadia units eligible for funding?
So brands, we don't care about brands. We are completely brand neutral. You absolutely do not have to have VW branded vehicles for replacement or engines of a specific manufacturer. These are just fun due to the settlement with VW, hence the title. So your actual repowered equipment or replacement equipment or vehicles, again, brand neutral. They can be of any brand as long as they are certified or approved by CARB.
Yeah, I think
Next question.
Sorry, just to add some clarification. The requirement is that the new engine be certified by the California Air Resources Board to meet a certain standard for NOx emissions, and that standard is 0.02 grams per brake horsepower hour or less. So I think, you know, consistent with what Ping said, any manufacturer that has a vehicle with an engine that's certified at that low NOx standard would qualify for this program.
Correct. And just to add on to Vicky, just clarify for everyone, for marine engines, we are looking at EPA certification. So as long as they are CARB certified or EPA certified or approved, depending on hybrid technologies potentially falling into that category.
Are logging trucks eligible?
I believe logging trucks would not fall into the category of freight. You would have to perhaps provide a little bit more information on the specific activities of this truck. Again, generally speaking, I do not believe so, but you could reach out to us via email and provide us a little bit more information just so we get a better understanding of what is meant by logging truck.
Would a Class 8 truck be eligible if it operates in California but is running on a IRP not base plated in California?
So yes, IRPs are accepted, again, as long as you can demonstrate 75% operation. So we're looking for documentation, records, things that you can provide to show us that even though you're not based in California, the majority of your operation is within the state of California.
Are pilot vessels able to apply for funding?
So this is a no. Pilot vessels do not fall into the definition of a ferry, tug, or tow. And we did clarify this with CARB. And we do understand that there are regulations coming up for commercial harbor craft, which are looking at pilot vessels. But as it stands, these vessels simply don't fit the definition of ferry, tug, or tow, and henceforth are not considered eligible categories.
Is there a list of approved low NOx vehicles?
You could definitely take a look at, I think, Vicky, correct me if I'm wrong. So HVIP did have a list of available vehicles. We do not have a list on our website. So Vicky, does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think Ping's referring to a program that's another CARB program, but that program is no longer funding low NOx certified vehicles. I don't believe that list is still on the HVIP website. So we do not have a list, but we would be happy to assist you. We find the dealerships are very informed on the types of trucks that have engines, these low NOx engines. You can work with your dealership that you select. You can give us a call and we can help you access the CARB website that has every engine certified at the low NOx standard. So yeah, we're here to assist in that regard.
Thank you, Vicki. So I stand corrected. That list is no longer available. It used to be there. But yeah, definitely speak to your dealers or reach out to us. As much as possible, we will assist you. And again, we're brand neutral, so we will try to assist you in any way possible.
Says, how will we verify California mileage?
That is going to be dependent upon what kind of records you have. Potentially, people have given us their destinations, their routes, their general itineraries of how these vehicles travel, what kind of services they provide, just to indicate where they basically are most of the time. So that is just simply a type of record that you can provide. And of course, we understand many people have different forms of records. So this is going to be you working with the PO to make sure that information gives us the information we're looking for. Basically, that documentation is giving us the information we're looking for.
Is there a minimum of hours required for marine engines?
So currently for marine engines, there are no minimum requirements. Marine vessels are generally very cost-effective equipment, so that is in their favor. However, again, that's the current situation. So currently, no.
Says, can I purchase the chassis only, or can we transfer a bed or box to a new vehicle?
So when we're talking about the funding, we are actually only talking about the tractor portion itself. We're not talking about any other attachments or components associated with it. So yes, you can. You are actually supposed to purchase the tractor for the replacement because that is where your engine is located and that is the source of emission reductions we're looking for.
Do equipment haul trucks for a construction company qualify?
Potentially, yes. Again, depends on class and depends on, again, freight is irrelevant. It could be any type of freight. And I mean, for construction companies, a lot of times we could be also talking about dump trucks, which kind of haul equipment and will fall into this category potentially as well. So for very specific types of equipment and operation, it is difficult to provide a broad answer during a webinar. Please reach out to us individually just so we understand again what you're doing so we can give you a better and more accurate answer.
Are new battery powered switchers eligible?
So switchers, zero emission switchers are currently not part of the solicitation. However, CARB is very interested in any technology companies who have this technology available, especially commercially available. If you are a technology company or you are a vendor that basically distributes this technology, please reach out to us and to CARB with your proposal so we have a better understanding of the available technology for ZE switchers out there in the market. Again, CARB is very interested and they are willing to look into this specific category, but they need more information.
Is there any sort of exemption for the vehicles to be scrapped be newer than 2009 model?
So there are no exemptions to the scrap requirement. It's a scrap and replace program. You have to scrap your equipment or engine, even if they are a slightly newer piece of equipment, they still have to go.
Can I start to submit my online application without the estimate?
Well, you can definitely start pre-populating your application and save, but you will not be able to submit without the information. There are validations set in the form, specifically one to help you as an applicant to be aware of the information we're looking for, and two, to make sure your application is as complete as possible so we can get evaluating, and there isn't a time lag due to the need to acquire information later on. So obtain your information, go talk to dealers and obtain all the information you need. So again, you can start it, you can save it, but you just can't submit it without that information.
If you replace a truck, can you just destroy or scrap the engine and utilize the other truck components?
Currently, for trucks, you actually have to take to dismantler, a approved dismantler to be specific. So you are turning in the entire unit for scrap.
Would water trucks be eligible?
Water trucks currently are not. They do not, again, fall into the category of freight, even though they are carrying water. But the water trucks themselves don't exactly fall into the definition of freight. Again, so that those definitions really would determine your eligibility.
Are trucks used for agricultural operations like hauling equipment, fertilizer, pesticides eligible?
So again, for all the questions that are, I know a lot of people are interested in different equipment categories. For ag trucks, again, as long as you fall into freight, it has to fall into that definition of freight. And I feel like this has, all right, let me read the definitions to everyone. So maybe that will hopefully help everyone. So what is considered freight? So it's actually split into two definitions. You have class 4 to 7 local freight trucks, which are known as medium trucks. So again, only class 7 and 8 are eligible, but the definition does include class 4 through 7. So trucks including dray trucks and commercial trucks used to deliver cargo and freight, such as courier services, delivery trucks, box trucks, moving freight, waste haulers, dump trucks, concrete mixers, with a gross vehicle rating of meeting class 7 in this case. And again, class 8 local freight, it's anything that basically states used for port drayage and or freight cargo delivery. So you have to have some sort of freight or cargo delivery to be eligible for funding. And again, if you have a specific truck category, just reach out to us via email. We will work with you. We will work with CARB to see if you fit into that definition.
What type of usage records are acceptable?
We are looking for, depending on your equipment type, mileage records are really important, especially if you have maintenance records. Most trucks have to be on a maintenance cycle, so those records are excellent. For other equipment as well, mostly we're looking for logs or for usage records. Any kind of record that gives us what type of equipment it is, any kind of serial identifier basically that corresponds to the equipment. And then a reading, an odometer, an hour meter, depending on your equipment, that tells us how much mileage or how many hours you have traveled.
Next question, would a crew boat used for private use to transport personnel from offshore locations be eligible for repower?
So that is an interesting question. So it is for private use, so it doesn't quite fall into the definition of a ferry. Potentially, no. It may not be eligible for funding. I'm just quickly checking to see what the definition of a ferry is. So I want to say no for now. Just because, yeah, so because it says here that the definition of a ferry is any self-propelled vessel or boat owned, controlled, operated, or managed for public use in transportation of carrying passengers or scheduled services. So we are talking about the public sector. So if it is private, then chances are no.
And then the next question, do you have to purchase the new truck before receiving the funding from CARB?
So there is that giant slide we made notice of, very important. You cannot, and I will repeat, you cannot take possession of your replacement equipment or engine prior to an executed contract. The minute you take possession of that piece of unit before an executed contract, you are deemed ineligible. No exception. So please, you may put in a purchase order at your own risk, but that is not the same thing as getting your truck or your engine delivered, installing it, or start using it. So a contract has to be in place.
And this is Vicki. I just wanted to clarify as well that this is a reimbursement program. It's set up to issue the grant funds as a reimbursement. So you will have to pay, find a way to pay the full cost, and then you apply to the program for reimbursement.
Says, there are limited options for Tier 4 marine engines. What are the other suggested alternatives?
Well, so we definitely do understand, and CARB is also aware of the current situation. Unfortunately, the VW program criteria is currently set for Tier 4 or hybrid with Tier 4. There are no other options for this solicitation that will qualify your engine. However, we are negotiating with CARB due to the situation at hand, which is a lot of equipment simply doesn't have the ability or the capacity to repower to Tier 4 due to space constraints, architectural constraints. So keep your eyes and ears open. We're hoping for further development, but currently it is Tier 4 or hybrid with Tier 4.
Yeah, this might be a good time for me to mention the Volkswagen program that we're discussing today. It's actually designed to be a 10-year program, and we're just in the initial years of the program right now. So I think, you know, through input and feedback from you of these categories that maybe are more viable technologies as we move forward, we can continue to coordinate with CARB and build in those categories into this program. Right now, zero emission marine, I believe, is not an option, right, Ping?
Correct.
But it's one that we all want to find a way to provide incentives for. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Vicki. I was thinking zero emission switchers. Zero emission marine is actually a viable option. That is the Bay Area's category. So sorry for the confusion. Zero emission marine just doesn't fall into our category. So
yeah,
zero emission
combustion category for, you know, specifically looking at combustion technologies that are low emission. But as Ping said, there is another VW funding category called Zero Emission Freight and Marine Projects. That one is being administered by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And Ping, I don't know if you have an update on when that solicitation may come out.
That solicitation is actually currently open as well. So if you're interested in ZE Marine, specifically ZE Marine, then please head over to their website, and you can just go to our VW website. The front or home page has a link to their categories and all the other VW program categories. But also as a clarification, even though their category is called ZE Freight and Marine, which sounds a lot like Combustion Freight and Marine, other than marine vessels themselves, all the other categories are very different. So they have fundings for ZE forklifts, airport ground support equipment, cargo handling. So as you can see, they're very different. And as just a reminder, if you're interested in yard trucks or terminal trucks, that does actually fall into their category, but does not fall into our category.
We have two older trucks that are Class 7. One is on the CARB low mileage exemption, and the other truck is no longer on the exemption and therefore cannot drive it. Would we qualify for re-energizing of this vehicle?
So unfortunately, the short answer to that would be no, because again, the VW program does not fund for compliance. your vehicles and your fleets actually have to meet compliance to be eligible for funding. And due to the need to meet our target NOx emission reductions, we cannot accept low usage mileages. Vehicles, they are not cost-effective projects and do not provide the emission reductions needed for the program.
Another question, can a BIT inspection form be used as usage records for freight trucks?
Yes. Any kind of usage records actually could be utilized. It just depends on the information on them. As long as they identify your equipment and gives us the information we're looking for, we're not specific on the type of records. We just need documentation verifying and supporting the information you provided.
If I repower my 2010 tractor with a carb-defined engine, do I need to repower it again in the future?
So that would depend on carb regulations in the future. Currently, if you meet the lowest standard out there and the rule hasn't changed, then it would be no for that period of time. But as everyone is aware, regulations are being amended constantly. So for now, you're good. But for the future, you will need to meet future compliance.
What if I find a different replacement truck than the one submitted in the application?
That's perfectly fine. What it is when we're looking for the vendor quote and information, we're looking to see how to evaluate your application in the sense of how much funding we can actually provide you. So we understand you're not going out and buying the trucks on the spot. They're providing you a quote, an estimate of how much it will cost, including taxes and fees. Remember to include all of that information in your vendor quote. But that doesn't mean when you actually go buy a truck, it has to be that exact same truck, that same vendor, that same unit. However, the amount awarded does not change. It doesn't go up, but it can go down. That is something you have to be aware of. The actual final award amount is dependent upon the actual quote you submit for the actual unit you purchase. So what I mean by it can't go up is that if the trucks got more expensive, you're not going to get more money than what was the maximum awarded on your contract. However, if the truck you decide to purchase costs less, then we would have to apply whatever percentage cap for that category and determine the actual award amount based on that new quote. So hopefully that brings a bit of clarification to everyone.
So what is the difference between the freight mileage and waste mileage and the classifications for both?
So what it is that it's dependent upon the data we have so far available to us. Is freight, for most classes of freight, 20,000 miles is considered a cost-effective project. However, we do understand that waste haulers, especially those servicing communities, do not always average out to the 20,000 miles. Hence, there's that difference. They are lower because simply by the amount of travel. However, waste haulers, a lot of them are very old. Hence, we want to replace them with the newest available technologies. So making sure that we do not leave out this very good category of equipment will reduce the required mileage for that specific category.
Can you lease the truck or does it need to be purchased?
Very good question. So the answer would be, if you're a leasing company, in other words, you still own the equipment but lease it out, then yes, you can apply. However, if you are the company leasing equipment and you do not own the equipment, then no, you're not eligible. So only companies who have clean titles and own the equipment are considered eligible.
For a city trash truck, is trash considered cargo? For a dump truck, is waste, concrete, and asphalt considered cargo?
So dump trucks the definition of the dump truck is that, yes, it will be eligible for the city. It falls into the category of waste hauler. So yes, waste haulers haul trash, generally speaking, then yes, those would both be eligible categories. But again, they would have to meet the minimum mileage requirement and, of course, being compliant.
Is a flatbed crane truck eligible?
Is this a truck? Please reach out to us, because I actually have a question for this person. To be basically give us a little bit more specifics. Again,
Yeah, for
everyone.
example, I know what you're saying, Ping. Like, we would need to know what the truck is used for. What is the vocation? What's the use of that truck? So that'll help us answer that question.
Yes. So for everyone who is still with us on the webinar, if you have a specific truck vocation, contact us, because we just need more information. For certain items, we do need to reach out to CARB as well to verify that that does fall into the definition. So again, very difficult to answer broadly on a webinar just because we don't have enough specifics to give an accurate answer.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say these kinds of vehicles that you're unsure about, go ahead and reach out to us, because as I said before, we are coordinating with CARB to perhaps build in more options, funding options under this program over time. So don't give up, go ahead and reach out to us. And if it doesn't qualify right now, we can, hopefully work with CARB to see if it might be a new funding category in the future.
Are farm and agriculture related delivery trucks eligible?
So delivery, again, what kind of delivery are you doing? So when we mean cargo and freight delivery, we need more specific information. So reach out to us, everyone, please feel free. The VW fund is the slide that's being shown right now. So that information is available to us. If you have a very specific question, reach out to us via the email that is provided.
Are there any tax issues we need to be concerned about?
Well, so after getting a contract, I believe you can be taxed. There is a form associated which our finance division will give out. So you are not exempted from taxes. Please be aware of that. These funds can be taxable depending upon whatever situation, your tax situation. So do not assume that you are tax exempt, if that makes sense.
I think we might be done with the webinar questions.
So we're coming on. We have about 5 more minutes of the webinar left. If anybody has any other questions that are not truck specific, if you have truck specific questions about the type of your truck, again, reach out via email. We're going to be asking everyone a lot more information for clarification. But if you have any other questions, we still have a good maybe 4 minutes left of the webinar. We'd be happy to answer any pressing other questions.
What if the minimum mileage isn't met every year?
So that's actually a very good question. We're looking for the previous 12 months of information. So for the program, as long as within the last 12 months you meet the minimum mileage requirement, that satisfies the criteria set for the program. So for this particular solicitation, we're not asking for information from 10 years ago, from 5 years ago. It is the previous 12 months.
Can this program be used for more than one vehicle?
Yes, absolutely. There is a $3 million cap for your company entity by tax ID, which based upon the amount of funding is a lot of vehicles you can actually qualify for. So you definitely can apply for multiple units.
So I'm going to We still have like 4 minutes left. I'm gonna go into questions that were submitted during the registration. Is there any resources for model years 1984 to 1990?
So 1984 to 1990, those are very old units. The only units, they are not eligible for the VW program because we do have the cap at 1992, I believe. So, Vicky, is there any other programs that would allow engines that old?
I can't think of any. I think, you know, those older vehicles may have already been required to turn over to cleaner. You know, even the solid waste collection vehicles, I think most of them should be 2007 compliant. So I really can't think of any funding options for those vehicles right now.
Yeah, that's literally the only category of potentially still operable and in compliance vehicles would be the waste haulers. But those are really old waste haulers, and most of those are not operational at this point. So currently, there are no programs that we're aware of that would fund for such old pieces of equipment that are still in compliance and operable.
Another registration question is, do we need to repay these funds?
No. You do not need to give back the funding that is provided to you for the VW program, unless, of course, something happens and you breach your contract. There is a stipulation in your contract for those kind of instances. But generally speaking, the funds are intended to assist the public turn over older equipment to the newest, cleanest, commercially available units out there.
Yeah, I've heard this question before for some of our other programs. For the VW program, we're looking to execute a contract with you for 3 years. So the expectation is that you would operate the new vehicle during that 3-year period and report to us on an annual basis. It's just a 1-page report documenting you've kept it registered, insured, and here's the mileage, for example. So you do have the option to sell the vehicle during that 3-year term, but there'll be some requirements in the contract that you notify us ahead of time. And if we cannot transfer the remaining life of that contract to the new buyer, then we might pursue an action where you may have to buy out those remaining years. So you may have to return some grant money if you don't fulfill the 3 years of the contract. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think we might have time for a couple more questions. What can be stacked combined with this program?
Not state funds. So any other state funds? Currently no. Local funds? There's that link in our VW slide right here. Reach out to your local air districts. There are potentially local funds that you can utilize. There are other private funds that you can potentially utilize. But stacking with other state funds like Moyer, Prop 1B, HVIP, those funds cannot be stacked with the VW program. Oh, and I think we're out of time.
We are at the top of the hour. Thank you, Ping and Vicki, for your expertise and information about the funding solicitation for California's statewide combustion and marine projects. All right, so look out for the follow-up email with a recorded link early next week. And as a reminder, please fill out the quick 30-second survey that will pop up as you leave the webinar. Thanks again for joining us today.